And you know what? We are live here on this show right now. 99 Pod. What's going on, folks? It's not 1999 anymore. And believe it's not. So won't y'all like and subscribe to the channel to get them notifications that we have coming your way. And we have a lot coming your way. Man, I wasn't even supposed to hit the intro, bro. Because it's not like a regular show. What we want to do right here is have a nice conversation and debate about boxing right now. But at the end of the day, I had to procrastinate because, the topic wasn't ready in the system, but now it is. So sometimes, the food is not baked yet, but right now it's baked and we ready to go right now. So make no mistake, I am here and I am ready. Like Freddie, I'm coming for y'all and y'all dreams, okay? With this sports business that we got going on because, man, I'm hyped, even though I shouldn't be, right? You see, behind me on my wall, the Knicks, right? They always got to kill a brother momentum, man. I mean, these guys can't rebound to save their mamas. Literally. Fourth quarter, what's going on? What's going on? Can we get a fourth quarter rebound, please? I don't believe we had one. And if we did, hallelujah. Wow. Okay. I'm enlightened. Come on. Tom Thibodeau, what's going on? Where's the adjustments at, man? Listen, man, I don't even want to talk about it no more. I know my guy Dino, he's in pain too. With his Celtics that lost, that should have been up 3-1. Okay, he left my guy James Harden wide open. Okay, and we know 3-1, 2-2 is a difference between a shot. A shot can make that difference. Okay, ask the Kings with Harrison Barnes when he missed that wide open three that could have put them up 3-1. Then it was 2-2, and you already know what happened after that. Okay, make him miss the league, but listen, that's why we talking boxing right now to kind of get our minds off of the struggle. I got my guy, 99 Pod contributor Dino in the building. Dino, what's going on, my guy?
Oh man, Leo, it's good to be back. It's been a busy time working, adjusting the new schedule, but we are back and we are ready to go. We got a night episode for you guys, and we hope to deliver you guys some great content as always, as promised.
Absolutely. We got to deliver on our promises, right? And we might as well talk about the boxing fight that happened, the big boxing fight that happened on Saturday. Okay, Canelo Alvarez, he cruises to a wide unanimous decision over John Ryder. But I have two questions here, and I want to start off with this question. Is it fair to say that Canelo Alvarez is declining? Because Dino, you know me, man, I'm always plugged in into the boxing universe. I always hear the word through the grapevine. And the word that I'm hearing through the grapevine is that Canelo may be declining. Now, I know you are a Canelo guy. I want to hear from your perspective. Is Canelo indeed declining?
Well, I don't want to put that label on him just yet. I believe he is still only 32 years old. Technically speaking, in genetics and bodily wise, that is your athletic prime as a male, 28 through 32. So he's still in his athletic prime. However, on the flip side, he's been in boxing for a very long time, many professional fights. I believe, in the 60s now for professional fights or close to it. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body, and that's a lot of time and experience in the ring. So it's nothing to take lightly for sure. But I will say, I want to see the rematch with Dmitry Bivol in September. And depending on how that goes, then I feel it would be more appropriate time to open up that conversation. Because if he does not beat Dmitry Bivol in September, if he gets granted the rematch, then that will be a very big hit on his legacy and his career, losing twice to Bivol. However, I believe that it's props to him for taking that fight. Because Bivol's a light heavyweight. He's a bigger dude naturally, so he poses a bigger threat. And I just want to see what happens. That's the big thing. I just want to see what happens in September if he gets the Bivol rematch. Because if he wins, then the conversation's moot. But if he loses, then it's like, oh man, like literally, where does he go after Bivol if he loses to Bivol? Where does he go? Dave Benavidez, knock him out in 2 rounds? I mean, I don't know where we go with that. I had to throw that out there for you, Lil. We got to spice it up a little bit.
Oh, no, we're
But
going to get
if he
there.
loses to Bivol, I generally don't know where Canelo goes because that might signal that might be a little bit past his time. But let's see what happens in September.
So I guess my next question before I get my take on that decline perspective, right? From the fight that you saw on Saturday, against Ryder, do you think that version of Canelo will stand a better shot against Bivol in the rematch?
I'm not too sure because I'm not sure what weight they're going to be fighting at. I know Bivol wants Canelo's belts to be included in the next fight. Like, hey, you should give up your super middleweight belt since I won, which is fair because now he's kind of the A side. He just won. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Is Bivol going to go down or is Canelo going to go back up? I think if Canelo goes back up, he's going to have to utilize his jab more, and he's going to have to really make Bivol respect his jab because he didn't do that in the last fight. Bivol was just walking him down because Canelo wasn't using his jab and he wasn't afraid. So I think that's the biggest thing. If Canelo utilizes his jab against Dmitry Bivol and he makes him fear his jab when he's coming in for a shot, that's going to ultimately change the fight. So that's what I believe his biggest thing that he has to do is in order to beat Bivol. And if he fixes that, I don't see why he could lose, or at least make the fight closer or not win. So I think it gives him a way better shot because his jab was MIA in that first Bivol fight, missing. Bivol was just walking him down. He was just eating shots. It was the whole fight. So got to utilize that jab.
I would say this, backtracking a bit here to the decline, Canelo's declining theory that's circulating all through the algorithms. I think he is. And I think the moment I peeped the decline was when he didn't get Triple G in that trilogy out of there. I mean, you're talking about a guy in Triple G that,
He's a
yes, I
tough guy, though.
understand. Yeah, now he is a guy, but he's not that guy, right? And there's a difference. He is a guy, but he's not that guy like how he was before. I'm talking about the fair Triple G. I'm talking about, yes, he still packed a punch, but man, he was a different type of time in Triple G, right? Listen, a creepy looking Triple G. I mean, the guy looked like Vladimir Putin. All right, the guy couldn't smile. And towards the end of his career, my guy you can't get him to stop smiling. That's not the version of Triple G that I want to see Canelo fight. Okay. And he went in there, picked up a check, and that was it. And Canelo said consistently, I'm going to knock you out. That's what I'm aiming for. The motivation for me to take this fight is to knock him out. Okay. Eliminate the controversy of the two fights and knock him out clean. And he couldn't do that. He couldn't knock him out. Right. And on top of that, John Ryder, okay, on Saturday, broke his nose, second round. Couldn't breathe. I can't breathe. It's not working. Okay. And he couldn't even get him out of there. I mean, you look at the ring. The ring was 18 by 18. It was a phone booth. Okay. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. Just like my theme song on this show. You can run, but you can't hide. Okay. It comes so fast as suicide. Okay. It was suicide in that ring. He was in the lion's den. But yet, broken nose and all that, Canelo, who was aiming to get the knockout in this fight, it's not like he's showing mercy. I hear people who may be showing mercy. No, he ain't showing no daggone mercy. He wanted to get him out of there. He couldn't even get him out of there. Canelo in the past was knocking guys out. I got to give it to him. I mean, Amir Khan, I understand Amir Khan shot up in weight to try to fight him. So, Canelo was always a stronger guy. But, I mean, he sent him to the dogs. He sent him to the wolves, right? You see him constantly knocking guys out, playing. He stopped playing, right? But the knockouts are not happening anymore. You talk about him, manipulating his body, moving up in weight, coming back down. He went up to 175 to fight Bivol, came back down to 168 to fight Triple G. I mean, the wear and tear, my brother, I see a decline. I got to be real with you. If Ryder packed a punch that Canelo could have respected that night on Saturday, this fight would have been much closer, and potentially we could have saw an upset in his hometown. Because don't get me wrong, the work weight with Ryder and Canelo, Ryder matched the work weight. Like I saw the fight, the work weight
He's a
matched,
tough guy.
but he didn't pack no power. Canelo got to respect that power, and clearly he didn't, and that's why he was able to win a decisive victory. I give him that decisive victory in front of his home turf, but it wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't prime Canelo, and that's why I think he's declining.
That's fair. That's respectable take. I really think that the biggest thing is I want to see how he does against Bivol. Because here's the thing, Floyd Mayweather wasn't knocking guys out towards the end of his career, but he was still winning those fights. So
I mean, guy
as
had
people
great
get older,
defense though. Like
he did.
Canelo could be a little stationary.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. But at the same time, Mayweather also he wasn't getting guys out of there. He was just sticking and moving. I mean, amazing defense, but he also wasn't getting guys out of there. And like as people get older, normally they don't really get guys out of there as easy anymore because they're not as young. And I don't know. I don't want to put the label on Canelo declining just yet. I want to give it a little more time because he's still 32. I mean, granted, in his 30s now, but I want to give it, see what happens after the Bivol fight, and I want to see his performance because if they go into a slugfest and he loses barely on the scorecards, I don't know if I call that declining. But if he gets worked like he did in the first fight, then I think it would be a fair assessment to bring it up then, be like, okay, now this has some substance. But I know what you mean. He should have got Triple G out of there, and he should have got
Yeah,
Ryder out of
right.
there. He should have, but he didn't. I mean, what's done is done. Um, and yeah, I guess we'll see what happens in September as long as the contracts get signed.
I'm gonna get my Dylan Brooks on. I'm gonna poke the bear here, right? I'm gonna spice things up here. Okay, like and subscribe, y'all. I'm about to spice things up, right? Because right now, like you said, what's done is done, right? He cruised past Ryder. We are looking ahead to what's next for Canelo. Me personally, and I'm not the only one. I know this, okay? I've been reading comments all day. I'm not the only one that thinks that Canelo should fight the Mexican monster next. Everybody want to see it. All the boxer fans. I was looking at a poll from Fight Hub, right? 4,000 votes. Okay, in 27 minutes. Who should Canelo fight next? 50% of the votes went to David Benavidez. Okay, everybody wants to see that fight. Mayweather, Mike Tyson, everybody, you name it, they want to see the fight. Listen, we know boxing, right? The fans know who they want to see, right? The boxing elites that box in the sport know what fight is better. And everybody's pointing to the Mexican monster. Me personally, Dino, I don't think the Bivol rematch is a good way to go. And I'm going to explain everything because I don't think you could ever get a fight with the winner not being shortened with excuses. For example, when they fought at 175, and I heard it, my own ears, right? Oh, the weight was too much for Canelo. That was the excuse. Even Canelo said it. Like the weight was too much, right? That was the excuse. And Bivol didn't really get his credit. And you know what? Dino, I know you're an honest guy. And I know you know that loss to Bivol did not hurt Canelo's stock like that. Like, yes, obviously off a loss, you kind of do like go down, but he didn't go down,
Right.
right? Like it did not hurt him at all. So I think Canelo, it's a less risk of a fight in the sense that, yes, it may be more risk moving up in weight and fighting somebody stronger than you compared to the young lion, David Benavidez, but it's less risk as far as, okay, if I lose. Because let's say that was Benavidez that Canelo like that. Now he lost all leverage here. He definitely not the A side no more. So I think Bivol, he really can't win at 175. So if I'm Bivol, I don't even know if I want to go to 168 because then are we going to have a rehydration clause in the contract? Canelo has used 3 of those rehydration clause, right? Is it going to be an excuse then? So because the natural rate is a difference, I don't think that fight makes sense because the winner is not going to get their credit. Like if Canelo wins at 168, he's not going to get his credit unless they have no stipulations in the contract and everything is on an even playing field. Then maybe, but I don't think he gets his full credit there. I don't think he gets his full credit Bivol at 175. It's going to be excuses.
Well, it's tough to see because a lot of people, when they lose, it's sort of like the emotion instantly right as you lose. Like, yeah, like I don't want to make an excuse, but so it's kind of there because you're a little bit. Sometimes you're in denial about losing. Like I lose in certain things in life, whether it's getting a job or maybe it's a freaking game of chess, or even when I go spar in the boxing ring or when I play soccer. Like, yeah, you lose and instantly you're like, man, like what the heck, that's BS. And you think about it emotionally because it just happened. But then when you sit back and reflect, it's like, I probably could have done more. Canelo already had a belt at light heavyweight. He knocked out Kovalev a few years back, remember? So he's fought that weight before. In my eyes, there is no excuse. He got outboxed, he got outmatched, and Bivol just controlled the fight better. He sat there, walked him down, and Canelo had no answers to it. It was a bad night for him. And I think you just got to own up to it. Say, you know what? I got to be better. Because what? 168 to 175, it's 7 pounds, 8 pounds. It's not that massive of a increase. I mean, he's probably walking around heavier than that. So I don't think that the weight is really a good thing to use as an excuse because it's so close together. If he was jumping up to like cruiserweight and he was at 200 pounds, I'd be like, okay, like that's a little different, but it's only about an 8 pound difference. So I don't see why anyone with like a sensible take, it's like, all right, well, you just got outboxed. There's no excuses. And in
Unfortunately,
regards,
Dino, a lot of Canelo fans, they are in denial. Like
I mean,
I
yeah,
read the
but like I said,
comments, you know,
it all comes with like knowledge and experience of actually doing it. Like when you go in there and actually do it, it's different. Like I can't tell you how many people I've seen come in out of the gym where I see them once and then I never see them again. It takes people, a special person, to go in that ring and go out consistently like that. And I just think that if more people did, they would have a better understanding instead of just like being a fan and not really grasping the full concept of it. Because there are plenty of people like that, to where they don't really understand boxing in that way. But it's all right because that's what we get debates for. And the people in the media, like Max Kellerman and all that stuff, they all love to talk about this stuff. But in reality, I feel like it's a little too much to say it's an excuse for him to lose by going up 8 pounds. You got outboxed, dude. Go back in there, make your adjustments, utilize your jab, and go win the rematch. Whether it's at 168 or 175, you got to make your adjustments, and you have to be better prepared than you were last time. So you got, like, Canelo's my dude, but I'm shooting it straight. You got to be better prepared, and you got to fight a better fight.
and I think he got a fight that people want to see. Shouldn't it be about what the fans want? Like at the end of the day, you reach a certain plateau in your career, you should be fighting the fight that fans want to see. And I understand that Canelo has his own goals, and whatever those goals are, those are his goals by all means. But at the end of the day, if you're a people's fighter, if you're the box office, the face of boxing, you need to put on the fights that people want to see. I actually think right now, and I'm not saying that Tank is the face of boxing right now, but I think he's entering that category. I really think he can make a case. Let's say
Entering,
he
yeah,
fights Haney
entering.
next. If he fights Haney next and he wins, literally he's the face of boxing. Like when you give the fights that people want to see, then you become that guy, especially when you have the knockout artistry that Tank has. And I think when you're Canelo and you look at his last fights, let's go back to the Bivol 1 fight, right? I knew who Bivol was prior to that fight. A lot of people didn't. You
Hmm.
know how I know a lot of people did it? Because they picked Canelo to win that fight. The majority of the
Well,
mass
they
appeal
picked him. They picked
picked
him easily. That was the big
easily,
thing. It's like, this is
easily.
not that easy.
So people didn't know who Bivol was. So that fight wasn't really, interesting to the people. Then after that, you lose very, decisively. Then you go down and fight an old Triple G, washed up, right? Nobody want to see that anymore. Like that fight had that story. We move past that, right? And then you fight, the mandatory John Ryder, outside of, people from Mexico and boxing fans that really love boxing. We gonna watch the fight if it's on. We just still don't want to see that fight. So I think Canelo, by not fighting the guys that we want to see, which is David Benavidez, which is David Morale, which is Andre, the guys in your home turf, that's actually hurting, your boxing face of boxing status, where we just seen the mega fight, Tank and Ryan Garcia, 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. Like, I don't know,
I
maybe I'm
do.
crazy, but I
No,
think Tank is moving in there.
I get what you're saying. I do agree. I believe that Tank is moving in there. He's not the face of boxing right now, but he's moving in there. However, I will disagree in the sense of this. Who is Tank's biggest name before fighting Ryan Garcia?
I would say Leo's, like, as far as best fighter and name is different. I think Wally Romero did a good job of selling that fight, and that did
He
really
did.
good as far as
His
pay-per-views.
personality, yeah, he
But
did.
Leo Santa Cruz is probably the best fighter that he fought prior to, Ryan Garcia, and probably still like Leo
I
Santa
agree with
Cruz.
that. And now their names are nowhere near Ryan Garcia. This was Tank's first really big mega fight. This is his first one. And he's what, 27-0, 28-0? It's 28 fights.
True, but
This is his
well,
first
real
mega fight. And
quickly,
now you look at Haney. Haney's getting up there now because now he fought Cambosis twice after Cambosis upset Lopez, and now he's going to fight Loma. So now Haney's starting to get going. Now Tank is starting to get going. Canelo's already had big fights under his belt. All these newer guys, they're finally starting to get their bigger fights. And then
but the
remember,
thing
this is
is,
the problem we have with boxing. This is the problem because there's too many belts still, and
True.
Now we're starting to see it a little bit more where like these big names are fighting. Now we got Haney Loma later this month. Great fight. Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez, another good fight. Now it's starting to come together, but is it going to fizzle out as usual? I don't know. And that's the problem that we still need to see fixed is the best just aren't fighting the best across all weight classes. It's a whole boxing universal problem that we've been calling for to get fixed for a long time. So I think
But I
it's
think,
that's not really just specifically Canelo, but it's more of boxing as a whole.
but I think in sports and everything right now, there's something called recency bias. But also in boxing, it's even more so. It's about what you do today. So when we have the conversation about face of boxing, we are really not talking about the deal that Canelo signed with the zone, right? That I think was like a 12 fight, $365 million deal. We're not talking about that anymore. We are talking about today, like right now. And I think that Tank and Ryan Garcia fight literally literally shot up Tank to that category where you can make an argument for his side because it's like the last big fight that Canelo fought that was big, same, stratosphere of the Ryan Garcia Tank fight was the Triple G fights. And those happened a couple years ago.
On that stratosphere, yes, but keep in mind all the fights that, granted, I was pleasured to go see a few of them. All the fights he was fighting at super middleweight, he didn't have those belts. He went to go take over that division. So other people had those belts. Caleb Plant had a belt. Billy Joe Saunders had a belt. Colin Smith had a belt. They all had a belt already. He went and just took it over. So in real boxing, people know, like we know, like those are good fights. I understand to the casual, like, oh, like Tank Ryan Garcia, like, yeah, that mega fight. I agree. A mega fight he hasn't had since Triple G2, which has been a few years ago. However, his mission to go up in weight, super middleweight, and get those belts from other people makes them big fights. Because he wasn't defending those belts. He went to go get them. And that's
But the
where I have
thing
to say
is,
that
I
he's
think for
had
me,
big
right,
fights.
like Tank and Ryan Garcia, no belt was on the line. But that fight still, legacy wise, is more bigger than any fight in that division for a belt. It's bigger than the Lomachenkos and the Haneys for the belts. Like
I
I
think
have to agree
personality
because
wise, but personality wise, I could agree with that. But I personally think that if it's Haney and Tank for the belts, I think that's
oh yeah,
bigger
that's a
than him
different
versus Ryan.
that's a different stratosphere.
Yeah.
Because it's Tank, the box office guy, versus the guy with the belts, and he has an
Actually,
opportunity to
check
get the
that
belt.
right now. Check that right now. For the belts or without the belts, I think something bigger than Tank and Ryan is Tank Shakur. I
There
think
you go.
that is going to be
Exactly.
that's going to be massive.
Or
But that also because to show that the lightweight division is just loaded. Like
yeah,
super middleweight is nowhere near as loaded as lightweight. Lightweight's probably the most loaded division in all of boxing, right? Lightweight and then probably heavyweight. So like, I mean, the options are there for him. If I'll say this, if Tank goes out and cleans house, if he cleans out Haney, maybe Loma, uh, Shakur, especially because I think Shakur is the best fighter in that division. Look, he already cleaned it. He cleaned out Pitbull, and I mean, I want to say cleaned out. That's disrespectful because Pitbull fought a good fight. He beat Pitbull and he beat Ryan. So now, if he goes out and beats Haney, Loma, maybe, and Shakur, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him. Or if he beats Haney decisively, I'll give it to Tank that he's the face. But right now, I don't even think Canelo's the face of boxing. I think Canelo's number 2.
and who do you
The
think is
face,
number one? Tyson Fury?
the face of boxing is Tyson Fury, no matter how you slice it. And I'll tell you why. I understand his 2 recent fights, Derek Chisora, Dillian White. I get it. But look at the draw he's bringing in. Wembley Stadium, 90,000 people. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 65,000 people. Selling it out. Massive draws. That against Dillian White and Derek Chisora. He's doing all of that, and everyone's tuned in for it still. Even if they're not mega wilder fights, he's still doing it. Fury's the biggest draw in boxing.
I gotta disagree with you, Dino.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you
That's what
why.
we're here for the debates, everybody. That's what we bring to you.
I'm gonna tell you why. Number one, I think you can make the case, and this is nothing to do with record, because this guy has lost 2 out of his last 3 fights, right? But Anthony Joshua is a bigger Jordan Tyson Fury. if you want to talk about packing seats, and I'm serious, like packing Wembley Stadium. Anthony Joshua was doing that way before Tyson Fury was doing that. Like way before. Like he laid the blueprint. And that's why I think that fight is more attractive to Tyson Fury than the Usyk fight. I don't think he wants no parts of Usyk. And I think that was evident with the negotiations, right? That we didn't see. That we never got clarity on why it fell through. But we can, put two and two together and try to get four. Anthony Joshua is always going to have a big fight because
What about his
he
last one?
sells.
What about his
Well,
last fight? No one was watching that.
no, not Jermaine Johnson, of course, but he's always going to have a big fight against an elite fighter at the top of the class because he brings the social media followings and the guys in the seats. Like, think about the followers on Instagram. And I understand, I understand it's horrible coming with the Instagram, but this is how boxing works today, right? Unfortunately, it's not only about, actual live attendance, it's also about social media. I mean, this is where we come to in boxing. That's why Ryan Garcia, why do you think Ryan Garcia got the 10th fight? That was social media, bro. That was literally social media.
Mm-hmm.
It was not he fought this guy to get that fight. No, it was like, listen, I got a bunch of followers on Instagram and I'm popular. Let's make this fight happen. That's the only reason why Ryan Garcia got that fight. So technically, social media matters. And Anthony Joshua got more followers than Tyson Fury. Okay, and he packs around the same as far as fights or not fights, but attendees at these fights.
Yeah, and I will say that AJ is marketed better than Fury is. I will say that. I do
Oh,
agree because I remember when AJ was originally talking to Tyson Fury all these years back, he was like, "Come to my agency and we'll market you to be a global superstar." Like, he said that to him, and Fury was like, "No." He's like, I want to box. I want to fight." So like, you look at it like that. AJ is marketed better. He is, and I however, I don't think him and Fury are gonna fight. I do not think that's gonna happen. I really think that AJ is gonna fight Wilder. I think it's coming.
and
I
you know
feel
what's
like
crazy?
I feel like this super heavyweight tournament on the same card, I think is gonna happen. I think Wilder and Joshua are gonna be the co-main to Fury and Usyk in Saudi Arabia. And whatever happens there is going to set the division ablaze. I think it's a brilliant idea, first of all, because another problem in boxing is the cards. Everyone tunes in for the main event, but how often is it that you really want to sit there and watch the whole card?
Now that's a fact. And I can make the argument that Wilder, and I agree, I do think when it's all said and done, Usyk and Fury is going to be the main event. But I can make the case that Wilder and Anthony Joshua is a more exciting fight. That should probably be the main event based off the attractiveness of the fight. And when you think about the purse bids that we kind of saw, even though it may not be real, it was just somebody that was verified in boxing that threw out the potential purse bids of the fight. You can see that Wilder and Anthony Joshua is 50-50 split. And you would say, well, Wilder is the more exciting fighter. You're right, but it's 50-50. How so? That's because Anthony Joshua sells. That's why that fight right there is probably going to be 50-50 on the purse. And even though, Tyson Fury is going to make more than both of those guys, that's mainly because he's at the top of the sport as far as, being the number one, arguably the number one heavyweight. You
Yeah,
know what
I
I'm
get,
saying?
I do get that. Yeah, and the marketing is going to provide for a
It's
bigger
going to
pay per
come
view.
exactly. It's
But
going to come
maybe
with that,
I
with you
would
being number
prefer it
one.
if they did. Yeah, I prefer it if they did on their own card separately. But whatever they decide to do, we'll see what it is. Because if we get the super heavyweight tournament though, that's going to sell a boatload of pay per
Yeah,
views. So either
it is.
way, I feel like either way, even if we get AJ Wilder on its own card or the super heavyweight thing that's being rumored out there, either way, it's a win-win for us because we want to see it happen. That's the biggest thing. We just want to see it happen. But now let me backtrack real quick to David Benavidez.
Yes, I
I
was
do
going to
not.
go there.
Yeah. I do not think he should fight Canelo next. I don't think he deserves to fight Canelo next because besides Caleb Plant, I don't see a massive win on his resume. I think that right now, what David Benavidez has to go do is go fight Demetrius Andrade, and let's see how that goes. Let's see Andrade and Benavidez go at it, and then after that, the winner can get Canelo after Canelo fights Bivol in September. I think that path makes much more sense than Benavidez just jumping up and fighting Canelo. I understand the attraction. I understand that the stylistically how much of a great fight Benavidez Canelo will be, but not right now. Give the dude. I want to see Benavidez under the lights again, and especially I want to see Andrew under those same lights. I want to see them both in the ring. I think that would be a tremendous fight, and it's really gonna open up to see like, okay, this is who deserves Canelo more. We saw Andre call out Canelo after the Billy Joe fight. You know, we understand they all want Canelo. That's the money fight right there. Canelo's the draw. Just like how, you say AJ is, Canelo's still the draw. They all want him. So now let's see them duke it out, and then after that, the winner gets Canelo in next May, Cinco de Mayo weekend, after Canelo fights Bivol. That's what I think.
And they both Mexican fighters, so that date actually ring alarms, right? That's actually a perfect scenario, but I feel like it's unrealistic because let's say he fights Bivol next, which is sure looking like it, and I'm predicting him to lose to Bivol again. I don't think Canelo's team is going to advise him to jump right into the David Benavidez fight off a loss. Like, I just don't think that's good business for them, right? Even though we want to see it. So you're probably talking about another tuna fight, and we already start to see most people start to see decline in Canelo. Do you want to wait a couple more years? And this is why this fight is perfect to happen in September, because I think there's reasonable cause on both sides. Think about it. David Benavidez, he's not in his prime yet, but the guy's a monster, right? He destroyed everybody he's fought recently. And if referee Bayless wasn't on the payroll, he's packing up Plant out of there. He did more damage to Plant. I understand stoppage, more damage. It's boxing. I think he got more damage done, right? But I think for me, this is it right here. David Benavidez is not fully in his prime. That's reasonable cause for Canelo. However, like a couple boxing fans spotted, maybe there is a little bit of decline in Canelo. So there's reasonable cause to make this fight happen now. He fought on the big stage against Caleb Plant. I actually thought that he showed more in that fight, in the biggest fight. And I've been watching David Benavidez. He showed me more from a tactician standpoint. He showed me that he was willing to be patient in closing the distance.
He
And when he
overcame
finally closed the
adversity well.
distance, it was good game plan. He followed it to a T. I saw the chess moves that he made that he really doesn't get credit for. All he gets credit for is throwing these barrage of punches and getting you out of there, especially in the second half. I think this fight is great because Canelo is Canelo. Like, he's going to come forward. He's going to throw a lot of body shots, but we know that there is holes in Canelo's game. We saw it against Bivol. He doesn't throw a lot of jabs. Stamina issues could be a thing with Canelo, right? He tends to wear off a little bit. Like, he's a great starter, but then towards the end, he wears off. Benavidez, what do we know about him from watching his fights? That's when he's at his best, in the second half of fights. So I think it's a very interesting clash of styles. And David Benavidez, even though he doesn't have one punch, power, knockout power, the volume, I think Canelo will have to respect that. Listen, I understand that, we talked about him, taking the belts and cleaning out. But Billy Joe Saunders, let's be real, he packed no punch. Pillow fist all across the board. Okay,
Well,
Caleb
but you gotta
Plant,
think about UK
respect to
fighters.
him.
UK fighters are like
Skillful,
that
I
though.
get it. And I understand, skillful, both of them are skillful. And I think Billy Joe, by the way, he announced that he's, fighting soon. He announced that today. I think him and Plant will be a good fight, for the styles, right? They the same thing. But pack no power. It was tailor-made for Canelo. And I think David Benavidez is a more popular fight. I think it's a riskier fight for both of them. Like, I think it's risky for David Benavidez fighting against Canelo when you just fought Plant. But I
Yeah,
also
plus,
think it's
but if he
risky for
loses
Canelo.
too, if he loses too, people are gonna question, be like, "Oh, that all the hype for what?"
Listen, I don't think it depends on how he loses. Like, let's say David
That's true.
Benavidez,
Does depend on how it goes.
24 years old, loses to Canelo in a good fight. We're not going to say, "Oh, David Benavidez, you're done." If that happens, I'm not watching boxing no more, because you just fought Canelo Alvarez, like, literally, and
Yeah,
you almost won. Like, it was a close fight. He would have to get destroyed for us to be like, well, yeah, Mexican monster, yeah, okay. But
yeah.
I think he really is a Mexican monster, and I think Canelo is still Canelo, and I think that fight makes sense. Like, Bivol, Obviously, there's a lot more for Canelo to gain if he beats Bivol. I will give you that. Like, there's a lot more to gain beating a guy like Bivol, but there's not a lot to lose. So it's a safe fight. But Benavidez, he has a lot more to lose. You know what I'm saying? So,
I agree.
and I think that's why he wants the Bivol fight, because he rather have a lot more to win than a lot more to lose. And it just comes down to chess. And that's what these fighters do. Not only Canelo, I'm not picking on Canelo. Mayweather did the same goddamn thing, right? When these fighters get to a certain plateau and they be known as A-side fighters, they have a way of, I'm not going to use the word cherry pick, right? I'm not going to be disrespectful here. But trust me, everything they do is strategic.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a better word than cherry pick, and we don't want to go that route, they strategically fight the fights that they want to fight, the styles, maybe the risk. All right, this guy's risky here, but it doesn't come with a lot of rewards, so I'm just going to avoid you. Like, that really happens. Anybody that don't think that happens, or it hasn't been happening with Canelo, I don't know what to tell you. Like, for example, Andrade. He had an opportunity to fight Andrade. The money was there, $45 million, to make that fight. But it was like, okay, Andre is a little bit risky. Yeah, I think I can beat Andre, but it's risky and it's not a lot of reward, because who has he fought? What is he bringing to, pay-per-view? So I'm going to avoid him. And once the belt change hands, because that's exactly what happened, I'm going to come back for that same belt that I could have fought Andre for, and I'm going to get that belt.
Look, and I understand, but here's the thing. Canelo got to a certain point. He's fought all these mega fights throughout his career. He fought Mayweather, fought Golovkin, he fought Amir Khan, fought all these big fights coming in. Wins those fights, most of them. And now he's the debility because he's the draw. People want to see Canelo. They're going to buy the pay-per-view. They're going to go sell out the arena. They're going to watch Canelo, and tune in wins Canelo. He's the name and the face. He earned that by going through and doing all those fights. Not Bivol, Benavidez and Andrade need to get closer to that level, because to Canelo's defense, look at their resumes. It's not like where he is. And I understand he has more fights, he's older, he's more fights under his belt, but like, I just want to see them go against more like top name guys where I'm like, okay, this is a fight. Like Benavidez Plant, I was like, okay, this is a fight. Now we're really going to see this. And Benavidez showed up and he did well. And he executed a good game plan, because I had Plant winning early in the fight, but then Benavidez turned around, took like the last 6 rounds. Hats off to you, man.
Second half shutout.
Yeah, hats off to him. I'm like, okay, like he got it, but let me see him get another one. Let me see him get one more. Let me see him go against Andrade. Why not? Why not? In October, November, why not? Let's see it. Let's see them go at it. Let's see who's more legit against, because they're two big names. We want to see the big names. These are two big names. We gotta see it. Because look, you take Canelo. Look, one year. It's not that much of a difference. It's not that much. Canelo's
In
still right
boxing,
there.
in
He's still
boxing,
right there. He's
in
right in
boxing, like,
great
1 year is
365
really,
days. I want to see Canelo versus Benavidez 365 days. One more fight for each of them. It's still close to the time frame. But I will say, after that, if it goes past 365 days, then that's when I think the excuses are going to come. Like, oh, Canelo was started declining. He was past his prime. If this fight is not made within 365 days, I agree with your take on that.
and this is one of my final points on this, right? Because as I'm projecting into the future, because that's kind of like what we do in boxing, we project into the future, right? We know that fighters take a couple months off. Credit to Canelo Alvarez, and I think that's part of the reason why I see the decline. But credit to him, I'm not going to short him on the activity. Guy been fighting twice a year. 1 year he fought 3 times a year. Like, he's the activity, the wear and tear, like, it's real. But credit to him for the activity. Some fighters, they fight once a year and all this. But I think for me, as I'm projecting into the future, and I see him fighting Bivol in September, and I see him losing, I'm gonna see Benavidez next. I see a tune-up fight, and then you do the tune-up fight, and then you gotta wait a couple more months for the Benavidez fight. And by that time, do we really see a distinctive decline in Canelo? Because we can. Like, for example, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Bud fan. But I'm not gonna lie, the Bud that I saw in the last fight is not the prime Bud that I saw. With all due respect, to be honest with you, like Errol Spence hasn't fought in a year, and they look like they trying to, make that fight happen. These guys are inactive, and it's messing up the sport. And that's my thing. I'd rather see a fight happen early. And I understand that Mayweather and Canelo is a very good example to use to try to shoot down my narrative that I'm about to spit. That fight happened too early. It was a lot of excuses. You actually should be happy Mayweather fought somebody early because he was fighting guys late. He
Mm-hmm.
fought Eddie Pacquiao late. He fought Sugar Shane late. So now it's more of a knock on Mayweather, right? Because I get on Mayweather. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna act like a hero here. I get on him for not fighting Pacquiao in his prime, but he fought Canelo early. So I think I'd rather see, me personally, fights happen early than happen late. Like Ryan Garcia Tank, you can say that happened early, right? These guys are still young. It happened early, but I'd rather it happen early than happen late, where you have more excuses when it happens late. Oh, decline here. Oh, these fighters decline. It didn't happen in his prime. 2 years too late, right? Amir Khan and Kell Brook, decades too late. I'd rather see it happen early. And I think, yes, straight answer. Is this fight, David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez, too early to make? The case, you can make a case for it because, David Benavidez, although is a very dangerous fighter, destroyed everybody pretty much that he fought, he still could show a few more fights against the Andres and the Morales.
Yeah.
However, I would rather see it early than Canelo potentially fighting two fighters before Benavidez, and now he's 34 and there's a distinctive decline.
I
If
do
that makes
understand that. I guess for my take, and I agree with that. I guess my take is I think Canelo can win the rematch. I really think if he utilizes his jab and he really utilizes it and puts it into his game plan, uses it effectively, I really think he can win against Bivol. I think it's a different fight. And I think if he does, I think if he wins I'm anticipating him to win the rematch. That's where my basis claims. I really think if he makes that adjustment, he'll be fine. And that's where I'm leaning towards. You know what? 365. That's it. Give him 365 days from now. If it's past that, then I don't know if I really want to. It's not gonna have as much hype as it will have if it's done within the next year.
yeah.
That's what I think. But I'm anticipating him to win. So if he loses, I agree that could mess everything up.
And Dino, any last thoughts as we segue out of this show? It was a good 45 minutes chopping it up. Any last thoughts that you want to throw out there before we close?
Oh man, we got some good fights coming up, man. For all these boxing fans out there, me and Leel are going to be tuned into them. We got Haney and Loma later this month. We got Teofimo and Josh Taylor next month. We got some good fights coming up, so I'm very excited. It's been a pretty good spring so far in terms of fights, and now we're hoping to close out the spring or hopefully start the early summer with Bud and Errol Spence, because I don't know whoever's watching out there, but Spence said the negotiations went pretty good. Came out today or yesterday, I think. So fingers crossed for that. We're hoping to get these big fights in. Hopefully, Tank and Ryan Garcia really, started a more consistent trend of getting the big fights. Because look, after they agreed, it's all trickled in. Haney and Loma trickled in. Taylor and Teofimo trickled in. So let's keep our fingers crossed and let's go Celtics tomorrow. Yeah.
I feel you on that, man. You know, I don't even want to say let's go next, man. We done. We pretty much done. It's a wrap, right? The cows are coming home. But I think for me, the close on in the sport of boxing, I think if I had to give a final take, a final lap, a final dance here, you know, 2023 has a chance to be a very great year in boxing, unlike any other year that we saw in recent memory. We started off with the Ryan Garcia and Tank fight, a mega fight that happened, and I won't say that fight was great, but the fact that it happened, we can't complain. Like it's like, all right, it happened. And that's what we wanted. I don't care if it was lopsided. It happened. It needed to happen. We wanted it. We was craving for it. We got it. And I think that accelerated the Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence because they looking at it like, yo, these two young studs could get this fight together. Why can't we? So I think we need to have these blocks go down so it could cause a trickle down effect to everybody else, so they could start smelling the roses because they're gonna want some of that shine. Like if you're Terrence Crawford and you watching this mega fight, Ryan Garcia and Tank, I mean, of course you're gonna give Errol Spence a call to try to make the fight happen. And I think the fact that these two guys, no love loss, is getting on the call to make the fight happen themselves, that's what I want to see. And I want to continue seeing that. I think everybody else should follow. And to cap it off, if we can get this big heavyweight card with Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, then I mean, hey, could we ask for anything else? Like, Dino, there's this narrative out here, and I was thinking about this on Saturday night as I was watching Canelo and Ryder, as I was watching, Sterling, and that fight over there in the UFC, and I'm saying to myself, there's this narrative that UFC has taken over boxing, and it's a fair narrative, right? They have better cards, right? Fights get made,
Fighters
everything
fight
is
the big
system
fights.
based, everything is system based. Fighters fight the big fights, and I agree, but I said to myself, take the biggest fight in boxing that could be made and take the biggest fight in UFC. Boxing is smashing the UFC's biggest fight. Like literally. Like I really feel
Right now, yes. Diaz is gone. Masvidal's
exactly.
gone. Jones is on. He says Miocic is going to be his last fight. He's going to retire. McGregor's been inactive or been hurt, been out for a few years. I don't see what big UFC fight is going to beat the biggest fight in boxing right now.
And not
Throw
even Francis
McGregor,
Ngannou and
even
John
if
Jones.
McGregor, and even if McGregor comes back, I don't see who he's going to fight that's going to be a bigger fight than, if it was him and Khabib, all right. But that's 5 years ago now. It's a long time. We ain't seeing that anymore. I don't see the biggest UFC fight beating the biggest boxing fight. No way.
Exactly.
No
Not
way.
even close. So boxing is basically, if you want to get your act together, you can defeat the narratives. And this year, 2023, could be the year that boxing takes back the crown from UFC.
But
And that's my biggest takeaway to leave us with.
I agree. But we got to keep our fingers crossed and hope that these fights happen and, no injuries, no pullouts. We got to hope that they happen because if they do, I think it'll be a massive year. And then the tides will start to turn again.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another show here in the books. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel to get the notifications. And we're going to be back here on Wednesday to chop it up. NBA talk, NFL talk. You know what we do. We do it all the time. So make sure you lock in.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.